All right, well, we're back for another round of our Meat Market Minutes, group of economists around the southeastern U.S., and we're going to talk about the market for different food products, especially as we approach the holidays. This is a really unique time for meat and protein products in particular. So first, we're going to start with Josh Maples out of Mississippi State. And Josh, I'll go ahead and throw it over to you.
Well, thanks, Justin. Yeah, I'm happy to be talking about meat as we head into the Thanksgiving and Christmas time of the year. Busy time for meat consumption. So I've got lamb this month, so I'm going to be digging in a little bit deeper here. And I got to admit, I don't do a whole lot of lamb market analysis, very little actually. So I learned quite a bit as I was pulling this together, and look forward to having a little bit of a discussion about it. So, if we think about lamb consumption and production here in the U.S., per capita, it's not on the same level as far as what we consume, as especially beef, pork, or poultry or something like that. We consume a little bit more than a pound of lamb per capita here in the U.S. But still, that's a pretty significant numbers when you think about how many people we have in the U.S. So quite a bit of lamb production and consumption here in the U.S. Speaking of production, we're looking at this chart here, and this is clearly the first thing that jumps out to you probably is the disruptions we had back in the spring, and we've talked about those before. But what I want to kind of bring your attention to is more recently, really since about the end of July, you'll notice that the blue line there, that's lamb and mutton production. This is federally inspected production. Each week has been pretty much lower than a year ago and lower than the 5-year average before that, really over the last couple of months. And this is kind of squeezing the supply situation a little bit on the lamb side. And if we jump to lamb and mutton in cold storage, we're not producing we're not processing as much the last couple of months as compared to a year ago. And then you look at the cold storage numbers, and those have been drawn down pretty sharply over the last couple of months. September is the latest data that we have there. But you'll see that, normally like last year and in the 5-year average, usually building up stocks as you head into August and September. And this year, we were drawing those down pretty sharply. And so, I think we're seeing a little bit, we're certainly seeing some tighter supplies here for lamb. And we're seeing that play out a little bit in the prices too. So this is the national lamb cutout value. So the equivalent on the beef side would be something like the boxed beef cutout value. So you'll see that really over the last, month or two, we've seen a pretty good spike in this cutout value for lamb. And then if we look at some of the more specific parts of it, so we look at boxed lamb loin prices. And I think this is one that we've talked about before on these meat market minutes. But we talked about the drop back in April and May, but really since then we've been on a pretty sharp ride up and really high prices compared to where we were a year ago into the 4-year average. So Justin, it's looking like lamb prices are going to be pretty strong for anybody that's looking at getting some lamb for a holiday season. Probably going to see some higher prices there. And a lot of that's probably going to come back to what we're talking about on the supply situation. So I think I used up my couple of minutes there, so I'll stop, but I'll be happy to have any discussion if anybody's got any question.
Thanks, Josh. I guess, just trying as we all are, interested in different kinds of meats and trying new things out. If I'm thinking about doing a rack of lamb, maybe for Christmas, you think I ought to go get a shrink wrap one now, or you think we might have a opportunity for a cheaper one before Christmas?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I really don't know the answer. I mean, you can see what lamb prices have been doing. So, given the run up that we've seen recently, you're really trying to figure out whether it's going to keep running up or not. And I don't know, Justin. So I mean, I guess I would lean towards holding off, but I don't have a really good idea of just how long this thing's going to last. I'd be happy to hear from anybody else if they've got a thought on that.
Well, I got a thought that's not quite that, but I think your chart on the stock levels of lamb in cold storage is pretty darn important. I mean, the industry certainly struggled in the past with just an overwhelming amount of supplies in cold storage, and their ability to work off those supplies, I think, given restaurant troubles and everything else, is pretty impressive that they've moved some of that product. At least it's not overhanging the market. So I think, that's got to be a positive for prices, along with, the whole trade thing and certainly some infrastructure changes with plants closing, new plants opening. And so there's a lot of changes going on, I think.
Yeah, David, that's a good point. And I think back to some discussions that we've had on this group back in that April-May period. Lamb is reliant on the food service industry. So we were looking at these cold storage numbers and talking about production, and really what's happened since then has been really encouraging for those markets, because I know there was a lot of concerns on just what in the world we were going to do with all the lamb that we had. So to see that drawdown happen has been impressive.
I'd also add that, lamb is probably one of these that's benefited as much as any species from some of the demand for local meat and freezer trade and stuff like that. It's not readily available in a lot of retail stores across the U.S. So it really, I think, lends itself to that kind of farm direct type market really well.
That's a good point.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Great. Well, then we'll stop and we'll move on to the next video, and hope y'all can join us for our the rest of our cuts and the rest of our products.